I don't often make videos like this, but I've been seeing this poison creep into many online discussions, and it is time for someone to address the paradox of tolerance as it is portrayed by this drawing before me. I am going to acknowledge that this is not actually how the original book was intending to use it. In fact, it didn't even make this argument, it was simply quoting an ancient Greek philosopher who was making a tangential argument at best. But I will address it as it is used in the modern day. So the first thing I want to bring up, even though this is going to be a focus on the rational arguments and not the historical meaning behind it, it doesn't even really apply to the Nazi Germany example as it is portrayed here. Nazi Germany, or well, the Weimar Republic before Nazi Germany, was not a beacon of tolerance. It was not a haven of any of freedom of thought or peacefulness. It was effectively an anarchistic state that was suffering from civil strife and people being stabbed to death rather constantly in the streets, different factions fighting each other. And one might remember that one of these, the leader of the Nazi Party, did get thrown in jail for an attempted coup of the government. This was not a peaceful realm as we are looking at it today. This concept that tolerance is what led to the Nazi rise is completely missing the fact that strife is what led to the Nazi rise. But even if we take that away and simply address the argument at its root, and now we'll talk about the paradox of tolerance, which is that if you permit any intolerant views to exist within the sphere of your government or within the sphere of your public debate, and you are a tolerant faction, you will eventually always lose to them, and they will always crush you, and then institute an intolerant society, which is a complete defeatist argument. And the problem with this view is that it is basic human knowledge that once an idea has been created, it can never actually be truly be removed. It is much like once something is uploaded to the internet, it exists within the internet. The same as the human conscience. You cannot burn every Bible. You cannot burn every Quran. You cannot destroy an idea. So if you truly propose that an intolerant idea will always destroy a tolerant society, then your only solution is an eternal war against intolerant ideas because you cannot get rid of them. You will simply be executing people to the end of existence. So that leaves you with two possible outcomes if you go down this route. The first is that, as established, you will effectively be hunting a rodent infestation that will never end, and you will be doing this for all eternity. Or you will eventually miss a rodent that will then take over your house, and you will be defeated by the intolerant view, because that is what the paradox of tolerance is proposing will happen if they ever are allowed to exist within the limelight for any length of time. And so, once you lose to the intolerant society that is now taking over your tolerant society, and you have been doing nothing but hunt them and crush them at every step of the way, they are going to repay you in kind, and much worse, 1,000 times over, and you will have no one but yourself to blame. So if the paradox of tolerance is true, and you follow down its suggested route, which is meet them with fire, then you will eventually find yourself either burned out or getting burned. It is much more sensible that if the paradox of tolerance is true, that you approach the intolerant views in an open-handed manner and look at why they exist. Because if you do believe that a tolerant society can exist, and you do believe in the good of humans at root, then their intolerant views must come from some kind of root cause that is causing them issues, and that they are using as that they are forwarding onto an intolerant view. So the current very popular example is the whole debate between trans whites or not whites. If the issue is that you want tolerance of trans and your enemy thinks that trans people should not be represented or should not be getting the kind of support that they are getting or that you want them to get, then you should look at the root underlying issue, which is that the left says trans have high rate of suicide. The right says public education is indoctrinating our kids. So both things we should be looking at, because it is well known that the mental health care system is horrendous, and no one would be objecting to having a better mental health care support system that would prevent such abundance of suicide cases, both in the trans community and outside of it. But it is also accepted that the education system has become incredibly inefficient over the years. And so you should instead take this energy that the intolerant supposedly have, this energy to always win, and guide it into a productive outcome. So that by the time that they do take power, if that is truly what the paradox states will always have, they will be mellowed out and will come to a centrist point, rather than having been alienated and offended at every turn. The other point about the paradox of tolerance is the great irony that to combat intolerance you will need to commit actions such as banning witch hunts, muting, removing any kind of free speech for the people that you deem to be intolerant, so that your society does not collapse. As said, you're effectively committing an eternal hunt of rodents. And we know from any kind of experience that the first time you commit an action, it has an emotional impact on you. The first time you go to a new job, the first time you do anything, you will be invested. If you do it 100 times, if you do it 1,000 times, whatever you are doing repeatedly will numb you to the experience and the action. So you might invoke the paradox of tolerance early on and feel bad for whoever you are chasing out, because at that point you realize that they might just be misguided or that they didn't mean it, and you are ultimately just following this belief that no matter how well intentioned the intolerant is, if he says something that is intolerant, you need to burn them on the stake, because otherwise they will destroy your society. But by the time you do it 100 times, by the time you do it 1,000 times, you will run out of that sympathy, you will run out of that emotional connection. And in the best case, you become numb to banning someone, to removing something, to silencing people, to encouraging violence against these people. And that is the best case. In the worst case, the one that I have actually witnessed, that caused me to make this video, is that you will become actively resentful toward the intolerant, because they are creating you more work every day of your life, where you have to engage with them and ban them, mute them, remove anything that they post. Because you chose to go on this witch hunt against all things intolerant. I've seen it drive a reasonable person to unironically state that he hopes that the intolerant will just choke on a shotgun. And if you go to that point, where your response to thinking someone is hateful is hoping that they will kill themselves, you have completely lost the plot. And that is what I think is the great irony of the paradox of tolerance. It's really saying, if you want to protect a tolerant society, we need you to become numb to taking away other people's liberties. We want you to become numb to becoming intolerant, so that you can defeat the intolerant, because intolerance will always win. Which is such a defeatist argument. I cannot believe that this was made in good intentions. It has to be some kind of reverse psychology ploy by intolerant people. Because if you truly believe that tolerance will always lose, and the only way is to become the villain, to defeat the villain, then you really shouldn't be getting engaged in anything and should just live in a forest. That's my rant. Thank you for listening.